Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. It was a sunny Tuesday afternoon when my brother, Alan, and his adult son, Mark, announced they were coming to visit. My wife, Elisa, and I hadn't seen Alan in years due to his work abroad. Mark, who had recently graduated from college, had been living on the other side of the country. The news of their visit should have been a joyful surprise, yet as they walked through our front door, something felt amiss. "Jack, good to see you, brother," Alan boomed, clasping my hand with his usual vigor. Mark, tall and lanky, gave me a quick, distracted nod before his gaze wandered around our living room. Elisa emerged from the kitchen with a tray of lemonade, her smile tight, almost rehearsed. "Welcome. It must have been such a long drive," she said, her voice a pitch higher than usual. "Thanks, Elisa," Alan replied, accepting a glass. "It's good to finally be here." As they settled into the living room, I noticed the ease between Elisa and Mark, an unspoken familiarity that gnawed at me. They exchanged knowing looks over their drinks, their laughter a beat too quick, their proximity a shade too close. My mind raced with suspicions. "Dad, this place is great," Mark said, his voice laced with an enthusiasm that seemed genuine yet oddly forced. "Uncle Jack, you've got yourself a paradise here." "Thanks, Mark. We like it," I replied, my eyes flicking between him and Elisa. Alan, oblivious, chatted about his recent projects in Asia. As the evening wore on, I observed them under the pretense of flipping through a photo album. Elisa laughed too heartily at Mark's jokes, touched his arm a little too often. It wasn't blatant, but it was enough. Enough to confirm that something wasn't right. Later, as I lay in bed, the images of their covert exchanges haunted me. Elisa's strange reaction to their visit, her overly cheerful demeanor, it all clicked into a pattern of deception. Sleep eluded me as a plan began to form. I needed proof, something tangible to confront this betrayal head-on. The next morning, I feigned a routine departure for work, kissing Elisa goodbye as usual. But instead of heading to the office, I drove around the block and parked a street away. The hours dragged as I waited, my mind a whirlwind of doubt and anger. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to see with my own eyes. I snuck back, the house ominously quiet as I unlocked the front door. The silence was a stark contrast to the storm of emotions within me. Stepping softly, I made my way towards the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. But it was the soft laughter coming from the backyard that drew me to the window. There, my worst fears materialized before my eyes. Elisa was there, her laughter mingling with theirs, in a scene far removed from anything innocent. The shock of it rooted me to the spot, a mixture of disbelief and fury swirling within me. "What a horror! It's immoral," I whispered to myself, my hands trembling. As I stood there, watching the betrayal unfold in the bright light of day, the seeds of revenge began to sprout in my mind. They would not get away with this, I would make sure of that. The plan was vague, fueled by anger, but it was there, taking shape with every agonizing second I watched them. And with that, I turned away, the blueprint of their downfall slowly forming in my mind. The following morning, I wake up with a sense of purpose. My plan is simple but effective: catch them in the act and gather undeniable evidence. I head to work, but my mind is far from the daily grind. I can't shake the images of Elisa with Alan and Mark from my mind. I can't concentrate, and the hours crawl by. By noon, I can't stand it any longer. I tell my boss I'm feeling unwell and leave early, making my way back home. Pulling into the driveway, I see Alan's car parked outside, along with Mark's motorcycle. I enter the house quietly, moving with the stealth of a thief. The house is eerily silent again, which only fuels my suspicion. I head straight for our bedroom, heart pounding in my chest. As I reach the door, I hear muffled sounds. I push the door open, and my worst nightmare becomes reality. Elisa is there, completely naked, with Alan and Mark. She has a kind of gag in her mouth, and the scene is something out of a twisted fantasy. For a moment, time stands still, and then the anger surges through me like a tidal wave. What the hell is going on here? I roar, causing them all to freeze in their tracks. Elisa's eyes widen in horror, and she struggles to cover herself, but it's too late. Alan and Mark scramble, but the shock has already set in. Jack, this isn't what it looks like, Alan stammers, his face turning a deep shade of red. It's exactly what it looks like. I shout back, my voice shaking with rage. Elisa tries to speak, but the gag muffles her words. I rip it off, and she gasps, tears streaming down her face. Jack, please, let me explain, she pleads. There's nothing to explain, I say coldly. You betrayed me. All of you. Alan steps forward, trying to put on his clothes. Jack, listen to me, it was a mistake. A mistake. I cut him off. This is more than a mistake. This is unforgivable. Before anyone can respond, I turn and walk out, slamming the door behind me. My hands are shaking as I grab my phone and dial the number of the one person I can trust, my best friend, Carl. Carl, I need you to come over. Now, I say, my voice breaking. What's wrong, Jack? He asks, concern evident in his voice. Just get here, please. 15 minutes later, Carl arrives. He's a tall, burly man with a no-nonsense attitude, and as soon as he sees my face, he knows something serious has happened. I explain everything, and he listens quietly, his expression growing darker with each word. We need to get evidence, Carl says finally. If you want to ruin their reputations, you need proof. He's right. We head back into the house, where I find Elisa, Alan, and Mark in the living room, all fully dressed but looking guilt-ridden. Carl and I ignore their attempts to talk to us and head straight to the bedroom. I grab my camera and start taking pictures of the scene, making sure to capture every incriminating detail. What are you doing? Elisa cries, following us. Gathering evidence, I reply curtly. This isn't over. As we leave the house, Carl turns to me. What's your plan, Jack? I'm going to ruin them, I say, my voice steely with determination. But I need to think it through. Over the next few days, I gather more information. I install hidden cameras in the house, ensuring that if anything happens again, I'll have it all on tape. I avoid Elisa as much as possible, sleeping in the guest room and refusing to talk to her. Alan and Mark make themselves scarce, probably sensing the storm that's coming. One evening, as I'm reviewing the footage from the hidden cameras, I see something that sends a chill down my spine. Elisa is on the phone, her voice low and urgent. No, he hasn't said anything yet, she whispers. I think he's planning something, but I don't know what. Yes, I'll be careful. I recognize the voice on the other end of the line, it's Mark. They're still plotting behind my back, and it only strengthens my resolve. The next day, I reach out to a private investigator named Lisa whom Carl recommended. She's sharp and discreet, exactly what I need. I explain the situation to her, and she agrees to help. I'll start by digging into their backgrounds, she says. There's bound to be something we can use. As Lisa begins her investigation, I focus on gathering more evidence. I follow Alan and Mark discreetly, documenting their movements and interactions. I hack into Elisa's email and find a trove of incriminating messages between her, Alan, and Mark. It's worse than I thought. This affair has been going on for years, right under my nose. With Carl and Lisa's help, I start putting the pieces together. It's a slow process, but every new piece of evidence brings me closer to my goal. I want to expose them for what they are, to make sure they pay for their betrayal. One evening, as I'm going through Elisa's messages again, I find something that makes my blood run cold. It's a series of emails between her and Alan, discussing a plan to take over my business. They've been plotting not just to ruin my marriage, but to ruin me entirely. This ends now, I say to myself, anger burning in my chest. I call Carl and Lisa and lay out the final stage of my plan. It's risky, but if it works, it will destroy them all. The next day, I gather everyone in the living room. Elisa, Alan, and Mark sit nervously, sensing that something is about to happen. Carl and Lisa are there too, ready to back me up. I know everything, I say, looking each of them in the eye. I know about the affair, the betrayal, and the plan to ruin me. Alan starts to protest, but I cut him off. Save it. I have proof. I turn on the TV, where the footage from the hidden cameras plays, followed by the emails and text messages. Their faces turn ashen as they watch, the reality of their situation sinking in. I'm giving you one chance to come clean, I say. Tell the truth, or I'll make sure everyone knows what you've done. There's a long silence, and then Elisa breaks down in tears. I'm sorry, Jack, she sobs. It was a mistake. We were wrong. Sorry isn't enough, I say coldly. You've ruined our marriage, and you tried to ruin me. Now you're going to pay for it. I turn to Lisa. Do it. She nods and starts sending the evidence to the media, to our business associates, to everyone who matters. Within hours, the story breaks, and the fallout begins. Alan and Mark are fired from their jobs, their reputations in tatters. Elisa is ostracized by her friends and family. My business survives, and I start the process of rebuilding my life, free from their betrayal. As I watch the news reports, a sense of satisfaction washes over me. They thought they could ruin me, but in the end, they only ruined themselves. The days following the exposure of Elisa, Alan, and Mark's betrayal are a whirlwind of chaos. The news spreads like wildfire through our small town. Gossip flies, and everyone seems to have an opinion on the scandal. My phone rings constantly with calls from friends, business associates, and even reporters seeking comments. But I ignore them all, focusing solely on rebuilding my life from the ruins they left behind. One morning, as I sip my coffee, the doorbell rings. It's Carl, looking grim. You've seen the news, right? He asks, stepping inside. I nod, setting my mug down. It's hard to miss. They're taking it hard, Carl says, referring to Alan and Mark. I heard Alan's wife left him, and Mark's been kicked out of his apartment. They're staying at a motel now. A pang of guilt hits me, but I quickly push it aside. They deserve this. Good, I reply, my voice steely. Just then, Elisa walks into the kitchen, her eyes red from crying. Jack, can we talk? She asks, her voice trembling. I glance at Carl, who nods and leaves us alone. What do you want, Elisa? I ask, crossing my arms. I'm sorry, Jack. Truly, I am, she begins, tears streaming down her face. I know I've hurt you, and I can't take it back. But please, can't we try to move past this? Move past this. I echo, incredulous. You had an affair with my brother and his son. You tried to ruin my life. How do you expect me to move past that? She breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably. I was stupid and selfish. I don't know why I did it. But I love you, Jack. I don't want to lose you. The sight of her in such distress stirs a mix of emotions in me. I loved this woman once, and part of me still does. But the betrayal is too deep, too raw. It's too late for that, Elisa, I say finally. You made your choices. Now you have to live with them. Elisa leaves, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I watch her go, feeling a strange sense of finality. This chapter of my life is closing, and it's time to start anew. That evening, Carl and Lisa come over to discuss the next steps. We need to make sure they can't retaliate, Lisa says, spreading out a series of documents on the dining table. I've done some digging, and there's more dirt on Alan and Mark than we thought. Carl looks at the papers, then at me. What do you want to do, Jack? I take a deep breath, weighing my options. We need to make sure they're completely discredited, I say finally. I want them out of my life for good. The plan is set in motion. Lisa contacts a few media outlets, ensuring that the story stays in the news cycle. Carl and I visit our business associates, explaining the situation and ensuring their support. Slowly but surely, we dismantle the last remnants of Alan and Mark's influence. One afternoon, as I'm working in my study, there's a knock at the door. It's Alan, looking haggard and defeated. Can we talk? He asks, his voice hoarse. I hesitate, then step aside to let him in. What do you want, Alan? He sinks into a chair, rubbing his temples. I just wanted to apologize, Jack. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm truly sorry for everything. I study him, seeing the broken man before me. This is not the confident, successful brother I once knew. Why did you do it? I ask, needing to understand. He sighs, looking down at his hands. I don't know. Boredom, maybe. Jealousy. I saw what you had with Elisa, and I wanted it for myself. But I didn't realize how much I'd lose in the process. I nod, absorbing his words. You've lost everything, Alan. Was it worth it? No, he says quietly. It wasn't. There's a long silence, and then he stands. I'm leaving town, Jack. There's nothing left for me here. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am. As he walks out the door, I feel a strange sense of closure. The anger and hatred I harbored for so long begin to fade, replaced by a weary acceptance. This chapter is over. The weeks turn into months, and slowly, life begins to stabilize. Elisa moves out, and we start the process of divorce. It's painful, but necessary. I throw myself into my work, focusing on rebuilding my business and my reputation. One evening, as I'm closing up the office, Carl stops by with a bottle of whiskey. Thought you might need this, he says with a grin. I smile, grateful for his unwavering support. Thanks, Carl. We sit in the living room, sipping our drinks and reminiscing about better times. You've been through hell, Jack, Carl says, clinking his glass against mine. But you made it out stronger. I couldn't have done it without you and Lisa, I reply. You're true friends. He nods, then leans back, a thoughtful look on his face. So, what's next for you? I take a moment to think, gazing out at the stars twinkling in the night sky. I'm not sure, I admit. But I know one thing, I'm done with looking back. It's time to move forward. As we finish our drinks, a sense of calm settles over me. The storm has passed, and though the scars remain, they no longer define me. I'm ready to start anew, to build a life free from the shadows of betrayal and deceit. And with that, I close the door on the past, stepping into a future filled with hope and possibility. The road ahead won't be easy, but with friends like Carl and Lisa by my side, I know I can face whatever comes my way. Months have passed since the scandal broke, and life has settled into a new rhythm. The wounds from Elisa, Alan, and Mark's betrayal are healing, though the scars remain. My business is thriving once again, thanks to Carl and Lisa's support. Elisa has moved out, and our divorce is nearly finalized. Things seem to be getting back to normal, but a nagging feeling in the back of my mind tells me that something is still amiss. One afternoon, Lisa calls me with an urgent tone in her voice. Jack, I found something. You need to see this. Meet me at my office. I arrive at Lisa's office to find her hunched over her desk, surrounded by stacks of papers and a laptop displaying various documents. What's going on? I ask, concern creeping into my voice. I've been digging deeper into Alan's past, she says, not looking up from the screen. And I found something you need to know. She turns the laptop towards me, showing a series of emails between Alan and a woman named Sarah. Who's Sarah? I ask, scrolling through the messages. She's an old business associate of Alan's, Lisa explains. But it turns out, she's also his mistress. The emails detail a long-standing affair between Alan and Sarah, going back years before the scandal with Elisa. But it's the content of the emails that catches my attention. They discuss financial transactions, hidden bank accounts, and even plans to embezzle money from my company. This is unbelievable, I mutter, reading through the evidence. He wasn't just after my wife, he was after my business too. Lisa nods. And there's more. I found records of transactions that show Alan and Mark funneling money out of your business into these secret accounts. They were planning to bankrupt you. The realization hits me like a punch to the gut. This betrayal goes deeper than I ever imagined. We need to expose this, I say, determination hardening my voice. Alan and Mark can't get away with this. Lisa agrees and starts gathering all the evidence into a comprehensive report. We decide to take it to the authorities and ensure Alan and Mark face legal consequences for their actions. That evening, as I'm driving home, my phone rings. It's Carl. Jack, we need to talk. It's urgent. I meet Carl at our usual spot, a quiet bar on the edge of town. He looks tense, his face lined with worry. What's wrong? I ask, sliding into the booth across from him. It's about Elisa, he says, his voice low. She's been meeting with Alan and Mark behind your back. What? I exclaim, shock and anger surging through me. Carl nods. I've seen them together, talking in hushed tones. I think they're planning something. The betrayal stings anew, but this time, I'm prepared. We need to stop them, I say, my mind racing. Carl and I devise a plan to catch them in the act. We install more hidden cameras in strategic locations and set up surveillance on their meeting spots. For days, we gather footage and audio recordings of their conversations. One night, as I'm reviewing the latest footage, I see something that makes my blood run cold. Elisa, Alan, and Mark are discussing a new scheme to frame me for embezzlement. They plan to plant evidence and make it look like I've been siphoning money from my own company. This is it, I say to Carl, who's watching the footage with me. We have everything we need to bring them down. The next morning, we take all the evidence to the police. The authorities are shocked by the extent of the conspiracy and immediately launch an investigation. Elisa, Alan, and Mark are arrested within hours, their faces plastered across the news once again, but this time as criminals. As I watch the news reports, a sense of justice washes over me. They tried to ruin me, but in the end, their greed and betrayal led to their downfall. But the surprise doesn't end there. A few days later, I receive a call from the district attorney's office. Mr. Thompson, we've uncovered something during our investigation. We need you to come in. I arrive at the office, curious and anxious. The district attorney, a stern woman named Rachel, greets me with a serious expression. Mr. Thompson, we discovered a series of transactions that were traced back to an international crime syndicate. It seems Alan and Mark were involved in something much bigger than we initially thought. My eyes widen in shock. What do you mean? Rachel hands me a file. It appears they were laundering money for a criminal organization. This goes beyond just embezzling from your company. We're talking about millions of dollars and multiple countries. The revelation is staggering. Alan and Mark weren't just betraying me, they were involved in a dangerous and far-reaching criminal network. What happens now? I ask, feeling a mix of relief and dread. We've already alerted international authorities, Rachel explains. Alan and Mark will face charges not only here but in several other countries as well. They won't be seeing the light of day for a long time. As I leave the district attorney's office, a sense of closure finally settles over me. The people who betrayed me are not just facing justice, they're being exposed for the criminals they truly are. I meet Carl and Lisa at our favorite diner to share the news. It's over, I say, a smile breaking across my face. They're going away for a long time. Carl claps me on the back. You did it, Jack. You got your revenge and then some. Lisa raises her coffee cup in a toast. To new beginnings and leaving the past behind. We clink our cups together, the weight of the past lifting from my shoulders. The nightmare is finally over, and I can move forward with my life, free from the shadows of betrayal and deceit. As I walk out of the diner, the sun setting in the distance, I feel a sense of hope and possibility for the first time in months. The road ahead is still uncertain, but I know I'm ready to face whatever comes my way. With true friends by my side and the truth finally revealed, I'm ready to start anew.